Well, Molly was up. She's in her room.
Little People Big World started out as a simple show that documented a family made of little people and average height kids.
My name is Matt Roloff, and this is my wife, Amy.
We're little people.
And the struggles that they faced.
You're feeling like you're living in a world that wasn't made for you.
Simply to raise awareness for what little people went through, but in less than 20 years, it's fallen apart into a show about family drama.
I feel like it's going to be a hostile environment.
Fights.
You don't admit to anything.
Greed.
If the kids decide they want to hate me for this, there's nothing I can do about it.
Grudges.
I have to step it up and let Matt know that I'm not going away.
And so much more. Guys, you'll never believe the story of how the Roloffs fell apart. So when Little People Big World began, Matt and Amy had every intention to use the show to raise awareness for little people issues.
I think it's great that my dad goes into schools and talks to other kids about dwarfism.
Matt owned a business selling stools and other equipment to help little people, and Matt, Amy, and Zach were involved in dwarf conventions all across America, and the show was truly centered on raising awareness for everything little people have to go through just to function in the world. But it became obvious to both the viewers and the producers very quickly after the show began that people liked the drama of the family more than awareness raised for little people, and it seemed like every other week Matt was getting into a new project and Amy was rolling her eyes and the kids wreaked havoc on the farm.
I saw the Grand Canyon and, I immediately thought I gotta have one.
It's what got people coming back for episode after episode, and it's what ultimately led to the family falling apart.
Why don't you just appreciate what God created?
And Matt seemed to get addicted to the money that the show brought in, and as season after season went on, his projects got crazier and crazier, and his marriage to Amy got worse and worse, and people began questioning if Matt was having an affair with his assistant Karen because they seemed a little too close for comfort, and Amy often made comments that suggested something was going on. And by the time they separated and divorced in 2015, it wasn't exactly shocking for the viewers at home. They had clearly become a toxic pair as the show grew in popularity and their fame and net worth increased, but it seemed to be pretty devastating for the kids, and from this moment on, the show was honestly never the same, and neither was the Roloff family. Around the same time that Matt and Amy separated, the first of the Roloff kids left the show. It was the youngest, Jacob, and his reasons for leaving were pretty intense. He made multiple statements saying that he didn't like growing up on the show and that he thought it had a negative impact on his life and development. And can you blame the kid? He was only 9 when the show first came out, and by the time he quit at age 18, he had spent half of his life so far on TV, and that just can't be a healthy way to grow up. And according to Jacob, he stepped away when he noticed that the film crew didn't have the family's best interests at heart, and he said that if anything, they were often stirring up drama to cause more problems amongst the family. And he said that even though they were good people, he didn't like knowing that they had an agenda to keep his family fighting, and that he knew that he would have to leave the show as soon as he was quote-unquote able to, aka when he turned 18, and that just seems so strange. I mean, do you really think his parents were forcing him to stay on the show when he was a minor, when he clearly didn't want to? I mean, in my opinion, they could have filmed the show around him on the farm like they do now, and Jacob works on the farm now, but you never see him on the show. But he said that was the reason that he left the show, and it ultimately caused some tension with his siblings who were still appearing on the show. But what none of them knew was that this would just be the beginning of a mass exodus of the Roloff family members refusing to participate in the show, and just the beginning of the family falling apart. While Molly quietly left the show around the same time as Jacob, the older twin brothers were featured more and more as they got married, bought houses, had kids, and started new lives. But this only made things worse in the family as the twins got into more and more competition with each other, and at the same time, Matt and Amy were starting to introduce their new partners on the show, and things had just clearly gotten strange for the family, and it became clear to everyone that nothing would ever be the same, and the family got changed by fame, greed, divorce, and so much more. And Amy still lived on the farm that she and Matt still owned together, and to make matters even weirder, Matt still lived on the farm too, just in a different house, and many people questioned if they were splitting off the farm for the sake of the show, because by this point, Little People People Big World had nothing to do with being little people and everything to do with the farm and everything that Matt had built out there. So it made sense that if one of them left, it'd put the show, the farm, and all of their family businesses in jeopardy. But by the time Amy sold her portion of the farm to Matt and moved out of the house, the family was so vastly different that it really didn't matter. Jeremy and his wife Audrey left the show after the first child was born, and at the time it seemed like a convenient time for them to leave. They had a successful business away from the show, and they had control over how their lives were portrayed on social media, but they obviously didn't have any control over that on the show, which we know was a big reason that Jacob left too. But Jeremy actually revealed some of the drama that went on with their decision to leave recently, and it doesn't sound like it was just a matter of those things, because a fan asked Jeremy on Instagram why they decided to leave, and he compared the show to a runner who refuses to hang up their shoes and stop running, to the point of injury and to the point of hurting the rest of the team. And even though I'm sure his remaining family on the show didn't want to hear it, he's got a point. I mean, don't get me wrong, Little People Big World is still one of my favorite reality shows, but it's lost a lot of what made it special, because all of the kids have left except for Zach, his wife Tori, and their 3 dwarf children. It's just not the same when you don't have the whole family that the show started with, at least in my opinion, and it feels even weirder knowing that there are 3 other siblings, but we're only seeing one of them, and Zach's barely talking to his dad, but I'll get into that in just a second. To me, one of the things that made Little People Big World what it was getting to see the kids grow up on the farm with all of Matt's crazy inventions and structures, especially when you remember just how difficult Matt's own childhood was. It was amazing to see this crazy world that he had built for his kids to grow up with, but that world has ultimately become the cause of the family's downfall. What once brought them all joy is now the reason for tension and fighting, because one of the biggest reasons that the family has fallen apart is because of the farm sale. For years, Matt told his kids that they would one day get the farm, and now obviously that would come with a price, but it always seemed like Matt cared more about passing on the legacy over anything else, and that all came to a crashing halt when it was revealed that Jeremy and Audrey had attempted to buy the farm, but Matt had turned the offer down. It's unclear if it just wasn't enough money or if there was another reason, and Matt has made comments that he didn't sell it to Jeremy because he didn't have intentions of running it as a pumpkin farm. I don't know why Matt thinks he gets a say in how Jeremy runs the business, but that's just my opinion. If I had to guess, Matt just didn't want the legacy that he built to be destroyed, and this is all just my opinion, but I personally think that Jeremy and Audrey wanted to turn the farm into a wedding venue and marriage retreat space, because look at their business that they run together. It's all about being married. I'm sure that they wanted the farm to be more in line with their own business, not Jeremy's dad's business, which makes sense, but it'd be sad to see everything Matt built go away, not to mention the income that they'd lose from all the people who travel all over the world to see the farm because of the show, and not even to mention the loss of income that would come from the show being over, because like I said, the show is now 100% the farm and family fighting. Without the farm, what's left of Little People Big World? And if Jeremy and Audrey refuse to be featured on Little People Big World, the show would definitely be coming to a close if they were to take it over. So it's really not a shock that Matt turned it down. If anything, it's only a shock because Matt acted like it would be Jeremy's farm one day for years, only to deny him the opportunity to buy it, and this seemed to have caused a huge rift between the family. Zach and Jeremy didn't speak for years, their wives didn't either, their kids barely saw each other, and it was just overall a huge mess. But Zach managed to stay on good terms with his dad until it became his turn to put in an offer, and things got ugly, and just like that, the last of the solid family connections was broken. According to Matt, Zach and Tori didn't offer enough money for the farm. According to Zach, Matt should have prioritized getting to live near his grandchildren over money, which part of me gets, because Matt did always claim that family was the motivator for everything he did at the farm for years, and obviously it's a very nostalgic place for all of them, despite the fact that it's also a business. But that's exactly the problem. It's a business. He can't just hand over an asset for free, but one member of the family pretty much did, and after the Zach fiasco, she definitely seems to regret it. According to Amy, she sold her portion of the farm to Matt for much less than what it was worth, because she was under the impression that he would sell it to the kids later on for the same price. So she obviously wasn't thrilled when he revealed that he was listing it for sale for much more than what he bought her out for. and the only problem was that it never sold. As it turns out, it's a little more difficult to sell the farm than Matt thought, and in my opinion, it was a move that made absolutely no sense. There was no reason for Matt to list the farm. The show is still filming, pumpkin season is still going, he still seems to be capable of doing it all, and he always acted like it was something that the kids would inherit from him after he passed, not that he would sell it to a random person at what seems to be an extremely random time. So what was the reason behind him listing it? It had to be out of spite, right? What other reason could it be? Don't you think he was just angry that all of the family had ditched him and the farm, even though it was his own fault? I mean, he was the one who turned down everyone's offers. He was the one who caused a lot of tension and fighting amongst the family, and now he's the one upsetting everyone by selling the farm for no good reason, especially because he ultimately took it off the market. Now, if he really wanted to sell the farm, would he do that? I don't think so. But what do I know? I've been watching the show from start, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it's that you can never be sure what Matt Roloff is thinking. But what do you think? Do you think greed and fame from the show is what ultimately tore the family apart, or would things have fallen apart even without the cameras in their faces for almost 20 years? Guys, let me know what you think in the comments below.